Well, good afternoon. Hi, friends. I'm Irvin Yost, and I've been continuing this conversation about looking at the theologies of the different songs and aspects of K-pop Demon Hunters. And so this time I have my friend Chris joining me. And so, Chris, would you like to introduce yourself a bit?
I would be honored, as I'm an honored to be a guest on here with you. Yeah, so my name is Chris. I get to be the pastor at Divinity Lutheran Church in Towson, and been there for about 7 years. I was a pre-K teacher before this, so any even if I wasn't talking about the theologies of it, I definitely still would have been talking about K-pop Demon Hunters in my previous existence professionally. But I think that there's just still a lot of lovely things about it. But yeah, so I'm just excited to be here with you.
Yeah, not to totally throw the preschool director under the bus here, but at our trunk or treat, there were four roomies, and
Yep.
she hadn't seen the movie yet. And I was like,
Oh,
ma'am,
yeah, yeah.
you
Come
work
on now.
with preschoolers. I need to go watch this.
I don't know how you haven't. I mean, it would have been lunchtime discussion every single day. I can almost guarantee you.
And I think they're probably singing the songs, and that's just how that is.
For sure.
So this week, we have gotten to Golden, which is the song of the entire film. And so this might be a slightly longer conversation than previous ones. I know that there's a bit of the continuing of the theme that Tom Rim had shared in my first conversation, where he sees this as Rumi's struggle with as the struggle of being Korean American. Chris and I did not gravitate towards that because neither of us are Korean. But I think both of us saw this as a very queer song from the get go. And so, you want to share any overarching ideas or anything that initial observations or connections you want to make?
Yeah, I absolutely think it's a coming out anthem in many ways. Right? I mean, she's singing about like being the queen on the throne, and not really feeling like she was like able to or qualified to or enough, right? But now she's kind of like living into this, and being who she was meant to be. And I'm like, oh, okay, yes, queen. Right? Like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's helpful context for anyone listening that both of us are pastors and both of us identify as queer in some aspect
Yes.
publicly. So that would be a reason why it resonates with us in this sense.
There you go.
Um,
Yes. Yeah. An
and
important contextual note to include. Yeah.
yeah, surprisingly, we're not two cisgender white men talking about other people's issues.
Right. As tends to be so common.
um, so yeah, I I feel like it. So I love how that line in the song is she's talking about I was the queen,
Hmm.
but I didn't know how to do it.
Right.
Like I didn't know how to actually believe that I was that.
Yes.
Um, which like if that's not like if I translate this to like I knew I was beloved and I didn't know how to embody that.
Mm, hmm.
That
Hmm.
is the queer Christian experience.
Oh my gosh, yes. In so many different ways, and I mean, there's still so many people who don't think like who obviously don't think that this is a real thing, right? That we are allowed to be both. But one of the things that I love about the Lutheran tradition is we very much embrace the paradoxes of both and, right? Like we often focus on the simultaneously saint and sinner, and looking at Jesus both human and divine, right? That things that don't seem like they necessarily could be, and yet voila. So I think that there's a lot about the queer Christian experience about since it hasn't been as much of a public thing, at least in modern times. It actually is a very ancient reality and a very ancient identity in many ways, but not one that has really come back into the frame, I think, for a lot of folks until more recently. And so a lot of people don't really know how to go about even doing that, or how to go about coming out within religious context, within Christian context. But I actually think that we have a great model. I mean, in this in the New Testament, in as much as I think that this is a coming out, I think you could also simultaneously call it a transfiguration. Right? And I view like the transfiguration of Jesus on the Mount as kind of a coming out in a way, right? Being who he really always was, but it's almost even though like his figure is the one that's changing, the disciples are seeing him in this different light, and are finally seeing him for who really he really was the whole time. And so I think that's just kind of the reality of being closeted. It's not that like you suddenly change into something else or someone else. It's more that you're kind of just living into your full potential and who you're always meant to be.
Yeah, and I love how, at least in Luke's gospel, the end of the transfiguration is he gets down off of that and he knows exactly what path he's taking. He
Yep.
goes straight to Jerusalem,
Yep.
and everything between that and the cross is about getting to the like the end that is guaranteed to happen when you stand up against oppressive systems.
Yes. Right. Correct. Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if we wanted to get into like all of the different atonement theories, right? But not necessarily that like you would have to understand that, but yeah, I think that there's kind of just this direct thing that, particularly in Mark, it's always just this immediately go
Mm,
right, like, and I think that you see that in the movie when Rumi releases Golden, right, or early.
yeah.
She releases the song earlier than they had necessarily planned to, because she wants to get to. They're just so close, and they now, like she just wants to get to this reality where everything is perfect. The golden honeymoon is done, right? Like, and it's all set up, and so I can see why there would be an eagerness to want to do that, to
Yeah.
want to kind of race toward that, even if it in the movie isn't really giving them much time for self-care, right? But and so that it's like it's this thing that is attainable to accomplish this thing, that is part of their identity, right? They want to kind of be able to live in who they were always meant to be as hunters in that respect.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's I think it's cool that when Angela and I were talking about soda pop,
Yeah.
she noticed that when people were consuming like soda pop on their phones,
Yeah.
headphones were in, it was an isolating experience. It like brought
Yes.
them, like it separated them. But
Yeah.
when Golden's released, people are gravitating towards screens. They're coming together in communities and watching it on
Yes.
phones, like
Yes.
very much like the young girls in my running group when Taylor Swift was announcing her new album,
Of course.
right? And so there's this idea of how music can bring us together, but really the music that speaks to the trueness of who we are.
Yeah.
And I think the film is really good at showing us that the bridge to the song that we know
Yeah.
was unreleased.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and so I think that, I mean, so in and of itself, I think golden is this one thing. But I also think that like it has different meanings if you look at it like in the context of where it shows up in the movie, and also in relation to the other songs.
Yeah.
Because right, like how it's presented in the movie, like you don't ever really get like the completed version of it, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that it's interesting to kind of connect it with the other songs, with and when you're talking about it being sort of this collective thing, these lyrics of up with our voices, who we are meant to be, but when it's interrupted the first time because I was just watching this afternoon to like make sure I was remembering what I was going to say. It's when she starts talking about herself as like an individual, is when like it starts to her voice cracks, and it
Yeah.
kind of starts to fall apart. And so I think that there's so much power in the collective, and then when they sing it again, you know, at the Idol Awards, in the big arena, kind of towards the end, you know, I think that there's this kind of sense of collectivity, but she still wasn't who she was already, you know,
Yeah.
fully herself, right? You know, and it talks about these no fears, no lies, but she was obviously still living in that, and that's something I think, particularly as queer folk, and especially as queer folk within a Christian tradition, we're very familiar with, like, you know, kind of revealing parts of ourselves, maybe, or kind of trying to live into this ideal or this idea that we might not ever necessarily even get into, but I think that there's a lot of power in the collective in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's even worth noticing that the note that she can't hit early on,
Yeah.
she does hit on that stage
Yes.
because she's done the inner work of acceptance.
Right.
And I think that is a like, I remember coming out at a evangelical megachurch, and
Yeah.
I was like a production leader and everything, and I knew that there were people that were going to have a problem with me,
Yeah.
and I was able to do the public work because I was like, oh sweetie, I came out to God first. Like,
Seriously. Yeah.
if you think that this has anything to do with being against God, that's
Right.
who I talked through first. And if
Yeah.
you don't think I was crying with God first about this, then
Honey.
you are seriously mistaken as to
Honey.
who I am as a person.
Yeah. Right.
Uh,
I don't know too many folks, at least folks of a certain generation. I don't know if it's different, for folks who are younger than me. Right. Their coming out experience is probably a little different now, but right. But there has just been so much internal work before coming
yeah,
out, right? And I suspect you could make parallels again before the transfiguration. It's not like everything that came before the transfiguration was nothing, right?
yeah,
I think that there's still, you know, Jesus kind of trying to live into his own identity, understand who he is as both human and divine. And so I think that there's definitely a lot of internal work that has to take place before you can even get to that spot. And then, but that's not to dismiss the public work you know, that still happens after. But I think you make a really solid point in that, yeah, you know, that she's at least able to kind of go past where she was before because she's coming to accept herself at least a little more. um, but I think it is important in terms of what it means to be publicly out versus privately out, right?
yeah,
You know, so kind of like when the demons come in and they do the diss track, right? And they kind of reveal her, right? You know, in this very public thing. I think that
yeah,
is very much akin to kind of sometimes being outed, you know,
yeah,
right? That we're even if you can feel ready, if you're still not the one that has the agency over that, it can feel really, you feel really exposed, and it's very vulnerable situation, because you start to forget that you are part of a collective and that you are not
yeah,
alone in this, right? Because it feels very isolating.
yeah. And especially with the imagery of them ripping her clothes off,
Yes, right.
at least like the parts that were concealing her. Like, if
Yes,
that doesn't describe how it feels to be outed,
yeah, that
um,
part.
yeah,
Yeah. And I think that there's too something of like oftentimes we think of gold as like it's the gold standard, it's the highest, it's the most of the most, right? And that there's really not much better, but I think that it can kind of be almost like on a surface level a little bit, right? And I think that when kind of you know, the old Hanmun go, you know, has to be completely eliminated before the new Hanmun can be, you know, created, I think is
yeah,
super powerful, and the fact that it is a rainbow, right? Like, ding, 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 ding. I don't know. Again,
yeah,
I know I'm probably projecting myself into a lot of them, but there's just like a lot of notes there, and I think that you can even then start making connections with kind of. where gold shows up in scripture, and I automatically went to the golden calf, right? Like, what that was literally an idol, right? And the Saja boys are being, I'm gonna be your idol, right? And they have golden eyes, and I'm like, bah! Right? That sometimes we think that what is golden is the highest, the most, the best that we can possibly achieve, but that you have to be vulnerable, you have to kind of go through that process in order to kind of be remade. It's almost like trying to go to Easter Sunday without stopping at Good Friday, right? That like you kind of need, you can't just have resurrection without death, and so I think that's sometimes we we want to kind of just jump past and get to the happy parts, but like that's not just really the reality of life.
And maybe it's just because I'm old and jaded, but in the past couple years since I've discovered von Balthasar's theology of Holy Saturday, like Holy Saturday connects with me so much more. Like, what does it mean to sit in the depths of death,
right,
hoping for resurrection?
Yeah. I also happen to think that Holy Saturday and like the Easter Vigil is the queerest of all the Christian holidays. Right? I mean, and so I mean that could be a whole other rabbit hole. But like I preached a sermon on it once where it's kind of like you can't just go from caterpillar to butterfly, right? Like caterpillar, when it goes through this process of the chrysalis, it literally turns itself to goo inside, right? And then like the whole is reformed. It's not just a matter of growing wings and then suddenly flying off. Like there's this whole process of deconstruction that has to happen first, and oftentimes that takes time. You have to sit with that, and that's the other nature, I think, of the Easter Vigil of Holy Saturday, is of this kind of liminality of already, not yet. It's this both and, right, where that sometimes takes longer than we want it to, or maybe longer than we think it should, and yet it is still a necessary part of a process, I think.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, well, first of all, I am super excited for getting to the final track with Steve Holt.
Oh, yes.
Right?
We love Steve, yes.
And a good old Episcopalian is going to be a great conversation.
Yes.
But I'm actually, like, when thinking about Golden and the struggles within the film, of this fully accepting herself, I kept going back to Richard Rohr's teachings on like true self and false self, and because he talks, for him, like the true self is our self in Christ, which like that's a whole thing I don't want to like project onto the film, but he also talks about how your true self is where we find life, being, and love.
Yes.
And we can see how by not rejecting this false version of herself, she's cutting herself off from like all three of these. She doesn't find rest because she's ready to keep grinding in order to seal the Han Moon to get rid of this part of her. Like, and we find that really quick. Like, as soon as she's like struggling with it, we can see the shame that Celine's been handing her, and know exactly why she's trying to push the tempo. And she can't go to the spa with them until she fully accepts herself. And so she's cutting herself off from love. And I guess it's pretty easy to say that it is love that helps her unearth the true self and allow that to like come out more.
I mean, I think yet another connection to queerness, and I think you could probably make corresponding connections with a lot of marginalized identities, right? But just this idea of I don't know, almost wanting to like pray the gay away, right? Like you're kind of, I certainly know that that was part of my experience, is that like I prayed that this wouldn't be a reality for me and that this would be taken away, kind of like Jesus in the garden being like, if you can just take this cup away, that would be great. That would be much easier for me. And and I think that there's, you know, a reason why that's not why conversion therapy is actually harm and trauma, right? Because that's not really how this all works. This is not something, you know, it's not really a matter of choosing. I'm now at a point now where if it were a matter of choosing to be gay, I would absolutely choose to be gay. I think it's wonderful. I love being gay. I just love queerness in general. I think it's so beautiful and expansive, and is really this love, right, piece that you're talking about. That's really it's not just a matter of like finding someone to love, but as RuPaul is a big fan of saying, you know, if you can't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love anybody else? Right? I mean, there's that kind of that tension of what love can do, and kind of revealing, you know, I do also, I'm assuming it's not coincidence that they picked Rumi as the character's name, right? I mean, I think a lot too of like of Rumi, the Sufi poet, you know, the Sufi mystic, and who did a lot of poetry about shining and gold, and using that as an analogy for your true self, right? And how that's an inner process, and having to do this kind of internal work is really where the gold is. It's not this kind of superficial external sort of a thing. It's not, you know, I don't know if we want to switch switch streams to another animated movie, but it also makes me think of Shiny in Moana, right? Like where he just keeps getting attracted to all these shiny, beautiful things, but it's just this very external shell, sort of a thing. But Rumi the poet is a big fan of that, and I think that there's a lot of connections you can make actually between some of his poetry and Christian Gnosticism, of there, you know, the feeling like there's an internal spark, right? And that spark is actually a piece of the divine that we have within us, that we have, you know, this kind of access to knowledge, but it's very much, it's all within us already. The whole universe is already within us, and that, I mean, there's some alchemy mixed in with some of his poetry too, I think, right? But you know, again, talking about wanting gold to be the final ideal, and then during the process of alchemy, you end up just like inventing chemistry, I think, by accident. Right. So yeah, I think that there's a lot about the true self in there, but loving that true love, the loving yourself, is, I think, one of the biggest pieces there.
Yeah. I think when it comes to my chicken scratch, I don't have much of anything else. Do you have any other thoughts that you want to share as we wrap up?
Not in particular. I think that we've hit on a lot of, at least what came to my mind, in seeing these connections, and the I don't know, the one piece I thought it was interesting when this kind of final confrontation is happening, when Rumi has to face the Demon King, right? That there's this moment of that happens kind of right after Golden, where, oh gosh, I'm blanking on his name. Head of the Saja Boy, Junior.
Genu.
Yeah. Genu. Self-sacrifices, right, in this moment, and I think that there's something, a really, I don't know, kind of a separate and yet still connected power in that, of where he finally was able to kind of accept himself and love himself, where he gets his soul back, right? And then gives it. Not to say that sacrifice is like, you know, mandatory. I don't think it's required. I think if womanist theology teaches us, I mean, it teaches lots of incredible, amazing things, but one of the most important things that I've gotten from womanist theology, is this idea that God is not the author of our suffering, right? That suffering is not something that we have to go through. I believe that God can redeem suffering. And so when you kind of see this thread of suffering happening throughout for Rumi, I think that is an important piece to kind of lift up, because I think a lot of times it's been, even, I mean, scripture has been weaponized to really uphold awful, racist, homophobic, really misogynistic, all sorts of isms, right? Lots of prejudice and discrimination, because they were saying, see, it's here, this is your lot in life, right? This is what because of who you are, this is what has to happen now, and that you're just destined to suffer. So that's the piece that kind of came to me, was, even though it wasn't necessarily connected with Golden immediately, there's still a tie-in, I think, from where it happens in the movie. And you even see, I think, with the finale song, that there's even a section of like when the crowd is kind of like singing Golden to kind of like bring it back, and make that little connection there, to kind of bring back again this collectivity, this communal sort of experience that we do this together. But just, I think, an important note that we're not required to suffer in order to find this, in order to find ourselves. That it shouldn't have to be that way. And I think you could say a similar thing about Jesus on the cross. I know that there's lots of different, again, theories about, did Jesus have to die and why, and but I think, to your point, right, and this is what happens with empire, right? I think it's much more a symptom of empire. Not to say that Jesus necessarily had to suffer, at least not in that way, in order for God to show God's love to all people, right? I think that a lot of times people confuse suffering as this sort of ideal, this gold standard, right? That's the ultimate, and we get that scripture. There's no greater gift than to lay down your life for your fellow human, sort of thing. But I just want to make sure that that's clear, that I don't think that is a necessary part. I think God can still redeem it, but it's not a requirement for everybody.
Yeah. And absolutely, I think for sure that the chanty part of Golden shows up before Jinyu steps in the way. I think it's as she's doing the dramatic walking down kind of thing.
Right.
I think that's when it starts. So it makes sense that it's that theme of connection, of like no longer hiding, and the theme of coming out and being who you're born to be. Also, that the creators clearly want us to make that connection. I hadn't. So the other theme that I've been playing with is also from another Richard Rohr book. He talks about incomplete prophets, ones where their righteous anger is not transformed, and because she has this righteous anger towards demons, and even towards the demon part of her, and it's her understanding of the other that helps her fully accept herself. Which I think is an important transformative. It's how she evolves to be a full-fledged prophet in this sense. And so I didn't think that Golden had anything to do with that part of the arc, but I now see how the Golden offers the invitation for her to know the other that she's labeled so generally, in order to help transform how the world sees all of it.
Well, and I think that there's something to be said for kind of this external piece too, because we as clergy often we talk about our journeys of discernment, trying to figure out, are we actually called to this work? Is this just the voices in the head, kind of a thing? And I know for myself, I much more trusted my external sense of call rather than my internal. I hadn't really come to embrace that yet. So for that kind of a coming out story, right, I almost needed somebody else to see it in me before I could accept it, before I could do that internal work and trust the internal work, is because other people saw it in me. And so I think that there's something to that in Rumi's journey of needing the other to kind of live into that. And I think it's the same thing a lot of times with prophets, right? I think you look at the prophets, right, in Hebrew scripture. I think the vast majority of them are not necessarily people who thought that they were worthy enough or good enough. They're like, no, this throne is not for me. Right. I'm slow of speech. I'm a shepherd. I'm right. Like I'm a nobody. They're not going to listen to me. They're my enemies. Right. I mean, all of them kind of go through this journey of trying to, I think, accept that, and God ends up being that external call, I think, a lot of times. So I think that it's another beautiful gift of the divine, is that even when we can't believe it for ourselves, God believes it for us, right? And even if we can't see ourselves as beloved or worthy of love, that God still believes it. And I think that's just a beautiful gift.
Yeah, and if we tie this back to Jesus is coming out at the Transfiguration.
Yeah.
That is after Jesus's initial ministry immersion in baptism, where multiple gospels have God proclaiming Jesus's belovedness and proclaiming Jesus's call before Jesus does anything at all.
Right.
That belovedness is the foundation through which his call is transformed and called and in as RuPaul of a manner revealed to the world.
Yes.
I'm now in my mind just envisioning, like, now the ascension, it has new meaning to me. It's Jesus sashaying away.
We're going up, 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 baby. We're golden. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
Well, this has been fun, as expected.
Yes.
As I mentioned to you before we started this, my therapist was like, "What are you doing? That's fun." And I was like, "I'm doing this thing where I just hang out with my friends and talk about cool theology things and K-pop demon hunters and record it and live stream it so that I don't feel like I can edit it. And so that it's just a fun thing that we get to put out into the world." And so people have popped in and out on Instagram and Twitch, and cool. Thanks for joining us. For those that are watching this recorded, probably most likely on YouTube, awesome. Thanks for sticking around this long. Two pastors talking about theology and K-pop demon hunters will take a while because we're talkers by trade. So would you like to share any way that people can stay connected with you?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm not cool enough to be on Twitch, but I am on Instagram. Christoph _ Schaefer. It's like Christopher without the R on the end. There's a long story behind it, but yes, that's where you can find me on Instagram. If anybody's still on Facebook, I am there more so for my job than than anything. But I think that there's still some beautiful connections that can happen even in the midst of a dumpster fire. Even dumpster fires give off light, So yeah,
they do.
Yeah.
I have a button on my bag that says something along the lines of like, "The strongest steel is forged in the fire of a dumpster," and it's got a happy smiling dumpster fire on it. So, well, otherwise, if people can't find you that way, they can find you through me. I will gladly pass information along, and feel free to engage wherever you're finding this and leave comments and questions, because we'll keep doing this. And if there are random questions where I need to bring someone back for a conversation, I will, because why not? It's fun hanging out with my friends, talking about cool things.
So. A delight. Yes. And we will always enjoy the opportunity to nerd out even more.
Fair. You now have me tempted to be like, should I just like interview people about their favorite atonement theories? Some people are very adamant about very particular ones, and I'm very much So yeah. Well, thanks again, and thank you